Welcome to another episode of DeFi Truth. I'm your host, Conrad Zen, former Bitcoin Foundation member and now evangelist for Pulse Zen. Boy, what a week it's been, and it's only Wednesday, the 18th of January. Well, we're going to start off, as we always do, with a wee dram. And I'm very excited to be drinking today the Glenfiddich 21-year-old Reserver. Hey, let's have a look at it here. Okay, poured over a single ice cube, as it should be. And the Grand Reserver's claim to fame is its tagline, where it says, raised in Scotland, but roused by the Caribbean. Why? Because it's aged in rum casks. And on top of the usual notes that you get from a Glenfiddich, cigar smoke, leather armchairs, there are additional notes of ginger, sultry fig, and lemon. Slanjivar, everyone. So, speaking of rum, how much do you think the most expensive bottle of rum was sold for very recently? Have a guess. Well, for those of you who know your rums, you'll of course have said this. The J. Ray and Nephew 1940 vintage, made in Jamaica, sold for $54,000. Now, why that much? Simply because of social consensus. We, as a society, all agree it's worth that much. Therefore, it has an intrinsic value. And in some part, this is exactly the same for crypto assets. You see, a crypto asset's intrinsic value is inherited from the code, the network effect, the functions, and in Zen, the observable results of the pay it forward code function. Now, back to the headline. I said earlier on that we wouldn't have Pulse Zen without Fibonacci. And of course, if I mention the word Fibonacci, you will have conjured up an image in your mind, something like this. Because this is a typical price action chart with the Fibonacci retracement lines overlaid on the top. And as moneymakers, that's what we use every single day. But of course, Fibonacci is remembered for his sequences, the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, which is seen throughout the natural world, in art, in music, in architecture. But that's not what I'm talking about. You see, Fibonacci was born to the son, not the son, he was the son of a very wealthy merchant in Pisa. And he was seconded to Algiers, and the young Fibonacci accompanied him. And it was on that sojourn that he discovered the beauty of Arabic numeral system, including the concept of zero. Now, the Arabs didn't invent zero. It was known to lots of different civilizations. The Babylonians, for example, the Mayans knew all about this, not just the Arabic cultures. But Fibonacci was so enamored with this system that he made it his goal to translate the cumbersome Roman numeral system into the Arabic numeral system. And not only that, he published a book. And the book was called Liber Abaci, simply the book of math. And in it, there are numerous financial computations, all done in a very simple manner. And this book was widely distributed to the merchants of Pisa and the moneylenders in Venice. And this fueled the trade that was going on at the time in the 12th century. Money was lent, the calculation of interest was done very simply, including compound interest, which meant that the trade could flow, the the money could flow, and the money lenders made their money, and the merchants made their money. Compound interest, before the publication of this book, was nigh on impossible to calculate. That is the connection that I am emphasizing today. But look, Albert Einstein said that compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. How is that? How does it apply to our financial world today? Well, Warren Buffett's favorite investing strategy is in fact time and compound interest. So why don't we explore this for you youngsters out there? So let's say that you're age 30 or upwards, and you are quite smart and you realize that you're going to have to save money in order to retire. Interesting fact, 98% of you will never have $1 million in the bank, unless you do something about it, of course. So here's an illustration. If you want to end up with $1 million in the bank at age 65 and you're 30 now, the magic number for you is 270, because that's how much you need to invest religiously every single month into a traditional finance product, earning, let's say, a generous 9% APY. Yeah, I know that's ridiculously high. So look, let's knock it back to 8.5 at age 35 from then on in. Okay? Now, with that commitment and with those payments over time, 35 years, you will end up with £1 million in the bank. Now, I hear what you say. Conrad, that's ridiculous. I can't live on $1 million. No, you'd be absolutely quite right. So look, let's bump it up. Let's say you're going to have, and you want $2 million in the bank when you retire at age 65. So the magic number now becomes $540 a month. But from this graph, the interesting figures that you should be looking at is, with a very small change in time, starting saving at age 35, so you delay it 5 years, your numbers are exponentially different. Okay? $450 a month, 452 to be exact, is what you need to save. And if you want $2 million in the bank, you've got to save $904 every single month for 30 years before you get that $2 million in the bank. Doable. You have to be very disciplined, but for the vast majority of people, that's all they're going to do. But we know the secret. We know that cryptocurrency is the highest appreciating asset class, right? Put in a Y in the chat if you agree with that. Well, unfortunately, an awful lot of people over the last 12 months wouldn't agree with you at all, because not only have they not made money, they've lost everything. They've lost their entire life savings due to fraudsters and scammers. It is disgusting. But let's look at the protocol that is Pulse Zen. And I want to explain the power of this in more detail, because I'm beginning to understand that a lot of you don't understand the power of this protocol. And so this is the math, and it is only an estimate because it's a moving target the whole time. And look, this is not financial advice. I'm not telling you this is going to happen to you, because financial advice is personal to you. I've no idea what your personal circumstances are. So we're just playing around with the numbers. We're looking at the possibilities. And I'm going to go forward into the future because I'm pretty convinced this is what we might see. We're going to have a daily turnover increasing back to $80,000 a day. The price is at 0.006 for the sake of this example. And you've managed somehow to accumulate 1 million Pulse Zen. A lot of you might be jumping off and buying it now because it's on sale. Anyway, right now, today, that math works out at 450 Pulse Zen a day. Okay? So, if we do the math on that, and I think I can show you in the next slide. And again, this is simply an illustration of what may happen. Your 450 Pulse Zen at 0.006 is $2.7 a day, $985 a year. Now, you accumulated your 1 million Pulse Zen for $4,800 US, And if you do the math on that, it works out to a very healthy 20.5% APY. And we're not far away from that right now as we speak today. But there is some more magic going on behind the scenes that you really need to understand. And this is what it is. Your million P Zen grew to 1,450,000, right? Because of the PIF. The PIF, what it does is it distributes Pulse Zen to those of you who hold it in your wallet proportionally depending on the percentage of the total supply you own at that time. So the more you have in your wallet, the more of the PIF that you get. So now you haven't got 1 million, you've got 1,450,000. So therefore, your market share went up. So you get more of the PIF every single day. But wait, there's more. Because of the burn function, that's right, Pulse Zen is deflationary. And because of that, the actual total supply also went down, which made your percentage share, your market share, up. This is the absolute magic of this protocol. Pulse Zen is a yield generating machine. Not only that, it's 100% true DeFi. It's 100% self-custodial. You know, it's 100% trustless yield. There's nothing else involved here except you and the code. So I hope you can see how amazing this is. And I'm going to look at something even more spectacular. Let's have some fun, okay? Meanwhile, are you following so far? Put a Y in the chat so I can see that you can actually hear me. Anybody hearing me, or am I just talking to myself? Let's have a Y in the chat if you could, please. And then I'll continue on. Fantastic. So here we are. Let's have some fun. Let's just project this forward a little bit. And now you're making 500 Pulse Zen a day. And the price has gone up to 0.01. That means that you're making $5 a day, which is $1,825 a year. And of course, you've got your 1 million P Zen at the very beginning for $4,800, much less if you're buying today. But even with those figures, you're making a staggering 38% APY. What? Where have you heard those figures before? But there's no lockup. There's no staking involved. You just keep it in your wallet. Now look, on these figures, which is not beyond the realms of possibility at all. At age 65, assuming you're 30 now, you're not walking out with $1 million. You're walking out with $377,580,242.82. That is a very large number. I hope you can see the power that P Zen protocol actually it is. We are harnessing the eighth wonder of the world, and that is compounding interest. Now, of course, along the way, I'm sure some of you want to buy some toys. You know, some cars, yachts, whatever it happens to be. The favorite seems to be Lambos. I have absolutely no idea why anybody would buy a Lamborghini in the first place. I, for one, can't get out when I get in. So it's not my car of choice. However, you know, I think it's a pretty nice looking car. So there's the car, very nice, but I want to show you something much more interesting, okay? I went onto the website this morning and I managed to see this little car here, which is amazing. Let me just show you this car. I've got to show you this car. It is so incredible. In a garage in Los Angeles, not this morning, last night, this little Lamborghini Gallardo 2011 model, low mileage, on sale at just $128,000. Now, if we look at the numbers with traditional finance, here's what happened. They said if you had, a little old jalopy that you were going to trade in, they were going to give you $8,000. How generous. And so they offer you a finance deal. And that works out to $2,500 a month for 5 years, 60 months. Your total cost $150,000. So for $2,500 a month, you could have that sitting on your drive. How nice is that? But let me explain something. That is not how rich people buy assets. Here is how we do it. If you bought 500,000 Pulse Zen today at the price of 0.003, which I think is roughly about right today, which is the 18th of January, you're going to spend a colossal $1,500. Yeah, look, I lied. The slide said $1,440. Yeah, well, actually, it's $1,500. With that, right now today, projecting forward just a little while, you will get 300 Pulse Zen a day. Now, again, not financial advice, but if we just allow our imaginations to fly just a little bit, it is not beyond the realms of possibility that Pulse Zen could see 0.3. And with that price, you would not only make your car payment, there would be dollars left over to actually put some gas in the tank for you to drive around in your beautiful yellow 2011 Lamborghini Gallardo. Are we following the math here? It's phenomenal, right? And all we need to do is spread the word. And eventually, there'll be more and more people piling into the protocol because the outside world is beginning to look not very healthy. Wouldn't you agree? So, salut revoir. That's all the math I have for you today. Now, let's see. I wonder what's happening with the price today. Let's have a look, see if we can see. Barry Silvered. Oh, yes, that's coming next. Meanwhile, I always like to look at Cathay Wood's ARK fund. She's fantastic. I love her to bits. Amazing brain, amazing investor. So I always like to see, well, how are we doing against ARK? Completely different product, completely different market, of course. But look, here's today's figures. This is just pulled this up a few seconds ago. Price action today, Pulse Zen is up 6%. ARK is up 1.04%. Good old Cathay, way to go. No problem, amazing performance. What about if we expand the time horizons a little bit? Look at this. Pulse Zen is up 214%. But way to go, Cathay, and I mean that kindly. ARK is down minus 30%. Remember what we said earlier on about crypto being the highest appreciating asset class? There's ARK, run by one of the best brains in the business, making a loss for every single investor who invested with them, 9 months ago, 6 months ago, whenever it is when we launched Pulse Zen. Anyway, so fascinating stuff, I'm sure you'll agree. But there's more. I think if you've been following me through with the debacle that is happening in the crypto world, let me just recap. You can go back and watch my hours of videos if you want, but I will recap very, very briefly. You see, this whole debacle started off with Terra Luna. This was an attempt at a stablecoin by a guy, Doc Kwan Do, who'd tried to do it before and scammed everybody. Lo and behold, it all went terribly wrong again. Bear in mind, it was a stablecoin. Collapsed. That led to a domino effect because involved in investing in Terra Luna were some heavyweights like Celsius, like Three Arrows Capital, and Sam Bankman-Friedman. Okay, Sam No Bank Friedman. What happened was Celsius, yes, good old Celsius, they also had a very large position on FTX, would you believe? And so what happened is Mr. Mashinsky, in probably the only clever thing he did last year, was he removed his position. He sold off his position and thus saved Celsius from going bankrupt. Well, no, he didn't. And here's why. Sam was mightily miffed at this. And he did everything in his power, allegedly, including naked shorting CEL, allegedly, and collapsed Celsius. Grinning like a Cheshire cat, I'm sure. But then you have to understand that Sam was also about to launch a stablecoin. Keep this in mind, the word stablecoin. The next thing that happened is, of course, is that we see the other CZ come onto the scene. And he says, I'm not very happy with your balance sheet. I want to actually cash out my FTT token that you gave me when I invested in your company, and I didn't get anything except FTT tokens, and I'm going to sell them all because I just don't trust you anymore. Because he'd seen the balance sheet. Somebody had given him the balance sheet. More of that, as we go on, of how he acquired that. But anyway, he sold it off. And basically that collapsed. The FTX Alameda debacle just fell from that point on. And CZ, held his hands up and said, nothing to do with me. It was going to go bankrupt anyway. Allegedly. Keep after saying allegedly here because I don't want to get sued by you guys. But it's going to happen this way. It did happen this way. So then what happened? Well, another bizarre offer from CZ. He then offered to buy out Sam and become the savior. Okay? But what was he buying it with? BNB. A coin that he created. Wow. How was that going to work out? And it didn't work out, did it? We saw that all collapse as well. But get this. Remember Three Arrows Capital that I talked about? They borrowed money from Genesis. And also the Winklevi twins are involved here with Gemini. Always get those two mixed up. Now, Genesis is the daughter company of Barry Silbert. Remember that little thing that you saw earlier on? Barry Silbert. Now, Barry Silbert is a very central figure in the whole crypto world. If his little company, Digital Currency Group, goes down, there's going to be a huge dip in the crypto market. Why? Because it is a massive fund that he's running. He's also involved, of course, in the Grayscale Bitcoin fund. That's his little baby. And the shenanigans there were the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust not doing very well. He actually borrows money from Genesis, the daughter company, to prop that up. Genesis was actually bankrupt because they lent Three Arrows Capital billions of dollars, and Three Arrows Capital went bust. So now they're in the hole. And so Barry Silbert's now having to bail out Genesis. Turns out he doesn't want to do that. And Genesis today actually said that they're going to prepare for bankruptcy. And that's where the tie-in with the Winklevi twins comes in, because they own the exchange Gemini, and they had used Genesis for their earn product and left people in the lurch. I think they owe something like, $9 million or something ridiculous like that. All of this, of course, is all centralized finance. There's nothing to do with crypto per se. It is all to do with a lack of governance. It is traditional finance methods, the Bernie Madoff Ponzi schemes, the Enron schemes, just being translated into centralized finance using a digital currency. This is not decentralized finance. Bear that in mind when you're having conversations with your friends and colleagues. You can explain to them that there is a huge difference between what happened with centralized finances, which we keep saying, you've heard it for years, not your keys, not your coins. So there we are. That's all I have for you today. And wow, what an exciting time to be alive. Oh, by the way, I'm not a bot. I'm not an artificial intelligence creation. And by the way, there is no I in AI. It's just artificial. Do you know what Chat GBT is going to do for the world. I'll tell you what it's going to do. We're going to have just a barrage of stuff on the internet which is slightly better written than somebody whose second language is English, but it's going to be meaningless gibberish at the end of the day. So there's no advancement in intelligence there. Now, the machine learning data pattern matching, yeah, that works for some things very well. I mean, don't forget, GBT is, what is it talking about? Chat Generative Pre-trained Transfer. And basically, all it is a data set which human beings have sort of like crafted, and then machine learning is involved to actually pattern match. And that's all we're seeing, pattern matching. There's no intelligence in this at all. So I'm afraid I'm just not as excited as everybody else with what's going on. Now, there is some interesting stuff going on in the intelligence program world, but it's got nothing to do with ChatGPT. So there we have it. Wow, what a rant. I'll give you a rest for a minute. Sanjivar. So the part you've all been waiting for. I want to get some questions. I want to hear what you have to say. I want a question, please. And just to make it more interesting, the question that I deem the most interesting, I'm going to give you 10,000 Pulse Zen. So let's ask away and see what amazing things you come up to ask me. So I'm going to go back and scroll up, and I've got Garo 55555, obviously a hexagon, just like me. No lockup group. There is no Mission Impossible. We go full steam ahead over here in El Salvador. Good for you. Educating people, building a fully functional Zen economy. Educating soon at the university. And I know this young man, and he has created the Pulse Zen universe on Second Life. And some of you may even be watching from the yacht in Second Life. I'm afraid you can't all come on my yacht in the real world, but you certainly are invited in Second Life. I've been using Second Life since it was invented. I think it's an amazing little machine. And of course, we are bringing Pulse Zen, or these guys are bringing Pulse Zen to the world of the metaverse. And so I think it's a fantastic initiative. I applaud it. And we're certainly going to get some interaction there. There's no question. And so for all of you who are watching in Second Life, Slanjivar, hello. You're very welcome. And I hope to meet you there in person, or in Second Life person anyway, once I have the time to do that sort of thing. Okay, let's have some questions, please. Who's going to get 10,000 Pulse Zen? Ford ZX298. Wow, what a name. Conrad, can you flex more on Twitter? Tell us more about the huge commercial aircrafts you've flown. Give us a tour of your yacht. Well, I think I've given you enough of what my yacht looks like without doxing myself. It's not that big. It's quite small. But it's a great machine. It's a Sunseeker Predator, if you want to know. Go and look it up. You can see it. I like it because it's extremely fast. It's quite economical. It's got 4 huge cabins and a lot of party space. And I get to drive it myself. Although I've decided after the last week of battling around in 50-foot waves that I'm going to sit in the back and have my whiskey. And I'm the captain who's going to drive the boat. Because the golden ratio of 15 feet waves, no, it was. Yeah, 5 meter waves. And the boat is, I don't know, 35 meters. So 5 over the 35, that is not a golden ratio, let me tell you. Biggest aircraft I've ever flown, well, of course, it's the 747. Not only that, the 747-8, well, it's not the largest aircraft in the world. It's certainly the largest commercial aircraft that there ever was. A whopping 420 tons of airplane strapped to your backside. A lot of fun, I have to say. A lot of fun, no doubt about it. But I like all sorts of airplanes and helicopters. So as far as flexing is concerned, you know, what you have to understand is, you know, you can do all this stuff yourself. You really can. You just have to believe in yourself. You have to commit. You have to take action. And whatever you want in life can be achieved. You just have to believe it. I highly encourage everybody to do two things. One, you should have a vision board in front of you every single morning. I prefer a physical vision board. I have one myself. Just pin things on there that you want in real life, like cars, yachts, houses, holiday destinations, a wife, a girlfriend. You will be amazed at how much this stuff works. I don't know why it works, but it does. I am living proof of that. And the other thing is you have to be very disciplined with money. You have to give yourself a budget. If you're not already wealthy, you need a budget. And all you have to do with that budget is take 10% of your salary every month or every week, whenever you get paid. Take 10% and pay yourself first. I don't care what kind of debts you have. Pay yourself first. That means take the 10% and dollar cost average in. I'm going to say Pulse Zen, but it could be anything. That's all you have to do. But make sure it's in a protocol that's giving you compounding yields. That is a life lesson for all of you sitting here who are not wealthy. Now, for those of us who are wealthy, different ball game. We need to diversify to minimize risks. But for all of us, having yield is the most important thing. There's no point in having $10 million in the bank. If you're spending $1 million a year, after 10 years, you're going to run out. You have to have yield. That is critical to understand at this juncture. We don't really care about price, especially when a protocol is 3 months old. We don't care about people selling. We want people to sell. What you care about is generational wealth through trustless compounding yield. That is the secret that you really must understand. Okay, I'm liking that question so far. Any other questions? Jürgen Wolf says, if I were to buy 1 million PZen, do you think it'd be better to buy it all at once or dollar cost average 200k PZen per month over the next 5 months? No financial advice, of course. Well, traditionally and statistically, it's been proven that dollar cost averaging into a project is, for most people who don't have a large amount of capital, which is the other criteria, it is definitely proven to be the best way, because nobody's going to be able to time the markets. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you think you're a crypto god. You cannot time markets consistently. So you might buy in at a low price only to find that next week it's even lower. Okay? Now, if you are looking at a longer time frame and you have that capital, then it doesn't really matter. But for the majority of people who are not wealthy and don't have a large amount of capital, dollar cost averaging, I would suggest, not financial advice, is probably a pretty good strategy. And I'm sure most people would agree with that. If you're already wealthy, then it's a different kettle of fish because your risk profile is completely different. And that's why, we always say it's not financial advice. It's not because we're not giving you financial advice. We are. But it can't be for you. It's not personal. And therefore the disclaimer of it's not financial advice. But it actually is. Hope that answers your question. That was a good question. You're in the running there, Jorgen. Whiskey Drinker says, hi Conrad, do you have stats on PZen holders in different countries? Which countries are holding the most? Yes, the UK. The UK is holding the most so far. I don't know, is it my accent? I don't know. I haven't even lived in the UK for 45 years, but I've never lost my dulcet tones. But the Americans are catching up very quickly, but we are a global movement. We've got holders all over the world. Australians, nothing against the Aussies, Kiwis, Canadians, the Canucks are in here. The people from El Salvador, some Irish people, some German people, some Spanish people. It is a global movement. Don't forget, we are listed on European exchanges. Not that I'm proud of that, but it's there, it's available. It's an avenue for people to buy into Pulse Zen. And so we are a global movement. But of course, the biggest economies of the world, the most educated about crypto, are indeed, the UK and America. So it's hardly surprising that they are the two front runners. Time will tell. We will see. Okay, how are we doing on time? Let me see. We're good for another 5 minutes. Any other questions? I feel that this is a very unusual time for me to be broadcasting, but it's not, because I'm shifting over to San Francisco time. And so I'll be broadcasting more often at this time zone rather than in the Caribbean mornings. So here we are. But I think most of you might have felt that this is a replay. If it's a replay, it'll say replay, even though it's been broadcast live. So this is another live, same sort of content that we did yesterday morning, but I'm live. But for my replay viewers, especially those in the United States, hello, and you're welcome. And thank you very much for joining and watching. Don't forget, you can type in the chat, possibly if you're watching on a replay, you might get an answer. All right, one more question. Anybody else got a burning question? I've got 2 questions in the running in my mind that's going to win the 10,000 Pulse Zen. All right, time's running out. Here we go. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. And I think the winner for the best question this evening is Jorgen Wolf. I think it was a very good question about whether you should be buying with a lump sum or dollar cost averaging in. And of course, it all depends on your circumstances. If you have that money, you're probably better off buying straight away. But if you don't, dollar cost averaging in is the way to go. So Jorgen, send me a DM with your wallet address and 10,000 Pulse Zen will be winging its way over the Ethereum network to you. Oh, and I'm also going to donate to the El Salvador Education Society. I think it's well deserved that they're doing a lot of work there behind the scenes, and the people of El Salvador probably need it more than anybody else. So the No Lockup Group representative, please send me a DM and 10,000 Pulse Zen will be coming to your wallet as well on the Ethereum chain. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up, but I will say something about Pulse Chain. Lots of debacle, lots of debates, lots of terrible things going on with the Hex community, which is very, very sad to see. I am pretty heavily invested in Hex and I don't like it one little bit. But, hopefully things will resolve. And don't forget, we're a very different protocol to Hex. We're not trying to steal hexagons away, although a lot of hexagons realize the benefits of Pulse Zen. No lockup, no staking. That is very good for some people. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone in 15 years. Not knocking Hex at all. It is a fantastic protocol. There is no doubt about that. But Pulse Chain is the fly in the ointment. And here's my take on Pulse Chain. I think we were doing pretty well developer-wise. And I think we were pretty close to launch. The problem was this. Vitalik Buterin came out of nowhere and was able to pull off an unbelievable feat of programming. And I can guarantee you this. He programmed the whole goddamn thing himself. There was a team, but they didn't do fuck all. Oh, excuse my French. They didn't do anything. It's all Vitalik. And he blindsided everybody and moved it across to proof of stake, all by his own sum. And that absolutely was a bombshell for an awful lot of people, including the developers of Pulse Chain. Because now we have to rejig the whole thing. We've got to start from scratch. And now what's happening right now is Vitalik's doing it again. We've got the Shanghai update coming out. And the most important thing about the Shanghai update is going to release locked up Ethereum. That is very, very important. It's a very exciting move for those people involved in the Ethereum network. And I think it would be lunacy to launch Pulse Chain before that update is done. So I, for one, am not expecting Pulse Chain to launch before that update gets released. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. I do have balls of steel. And I'm putting it on record that we're not going to see Pulse Chain before March. I actually hope that I'm wrong. But I think that's where we're going to be seeing Pulse Chain being launched. The other further that's going along is that, well, what's the point of Pulse Chain? There is no point anymore. And people are completely missing the point. You can Google it. There is a reason why Britain and France are still at war. I was all for the Channel Tunnel until I realized that the French could come the other way. Ooh, that's going to cause a lot of furore. I apologize. I love the French. I have some property in France, so it's not all bad. And of course, the French wines. I live every day on French wines, so please, I do love everybody. But here's the thing. An awful lot of FUD has been going about, there's no point in Pulse Zen anymore. Well, there is a huge point, and the point is this. It's not the chain that's being copied alone. It's the full system state. Everybody's coins are going to be copied across. It's never happened before. And so therefore, all of you who hold Pulse Zen, hey, guess what? You are going to get your copy on Pulse Chain when it launches. Now, don't compare this to the two nefarious chains of Ethereum that kept going, the ETH proof of work and the ETH ETF. Look, the ETH proof of work, you know, some of you thought, oh, let's keep the chain going there. Well, for me, no. It's a Chinese-run entity. They're doing it to line their own pockets, and I'm not interested in promoting or prolonging Ethereum on a proof of work network. End of. Pulse Chain, entirely different matter. So I'm going to finish off on a very positive note. I really believe that 2023 is actually going to be a very good year for crypto. Legislation not coming along. They can't even elect a representative House Speaker. How are they ever going to pass any legislation at all in the next 12 months? Not happening. As far as SPF is concerned, we're going to see a lot in the press. We're going to see a court date set, and then we're going to see an out-of-court settlement subtly coming across the airways, and we will never see SPF again. The world economy is teetering. It could be a bloodbath. However, two things are happening, or I'm going to say one thing really, and that is we may have a resolution of the war in Ukraine. And if that happens, the gloves are off. The risk on becomes evident colossally. Is that a word? Colossally? There is a second thing to take into account in the world economy as well. China. China has abandoned its stance on the C word, and their economy is opening up big time. Now, that is going to have a huge knock-on effect for the rest of the economies in the world in a positive way, even though really the Chinese economy is a basket case. But they still own a lot of American debt, and they still consume a lot of debt from America. And the more goods they sell, the more they have to actually exchange into dollar debt. So that's a positive for the economy going forward. But right now, over the next couple of months, it's chilly out there. Well, it's not chilly here, it's about 100 degrees. Anyway, that's it from me. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel. I've noticed a lot of you are consuming my content and you're not subscribed to the channel. It really helps the YouTube algorithm spread the word to a lot of people who might never, ever hear of Pulse Zen. So just take the time. I know it's very onerous. Hit the subscribe button, like and comment. Do so for Twitter as well. And also, if you have time, go and do it for all of the other Pulse Zen creators. Dandol Crypto for one. There are many others which I can't remember right now, but there are others doing an enormous amount of amazing work, telling everybody about the opportunity that is Pulse Zen. And that can only have a snowball effect going forward. So I wish you good night. Thank you so much for watching. And wherever you are in the world, I hope you have a fantastic evening, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Conrad Zen for the DeFi Truth Network, Slanjivar. So,
the power of Pulse Zen is in the compounding interest code. Let's look closely at today's numbers on January 4th, 2023. If you accumulated 1 million Pulse Zen at $0.03, it would cost about $3,000. Now, using the current average transaction volume, the daily pay it forward code is producing approximately 400 Pulse Zen per 1 million held. So at the current price, you are making about $1.20 a day, or $500 or so a year. That works out to a very nice 16.7% a year, and that is with no staking, no lockup. However, if we allow ourselves to imagine the growth in Pulse Zen, Just for fun we could recalculate. Imagine daily volume increases, and we get to a price of 30 cents per Pulse Zen. Now the figures look shockingly different. The daily pay it forward accumulation per 1 million held is now $120 a day, at an average price of 30 cents per Pulse Zen. That generates compounding rewards of about $43,800 a year, which is a staggering 1,460% APY. This is why people are getting excited about this hidden gem. Go see for yourself at pulsezen.app.